Well, hello there. My name's Susan Hamilton, and you're watching Offbeat Business TV or listening to the OBBM network. Today, I'm talking with Genevieve Collins because this show focuses on local business and politics. Friends, I know who you are. 80% of a micro to small business, as a matter of fact, I've heard now it's 90, are family-owned businesses of 9 employees or less. That means we're building our businesses while we're raising our kids, taking care of our parents. We probably have a veteran, active duty, law enforcement, nurse, or a doctor in our family or workspace, and about 30 to 50% of us have an addict in our workspace. We've got work to do, folks, and it's time to get involved in our local politics because we, the people, only matters if we step up and get involved. Today, I'm talking with Genevieve Collins, and this is going to be a great episode. So stay tuned.
Welcome to Offbeat Business TV and the OBBM Network podcast. CEO and host Susan Hamilton shares vital insight from local DFW leaders on successful life and business, focused squarely on local family business. It's time for our nation to rise, and we'll do it through a vibrant local business sector that stands up for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Ready to meet your advocates? Here's your host.
Hello there. My name's Susan Hamilton, and I'm talking with Genevieve Collins, who has some interesting history here in DFW, and she recently ran against Colin Allred in the 2020 election. And I think it's really, really important to hear from her today because all of those pieces that went into that election, we need to understand a little bit better. How do we get her in next time? Because she's not done. Genevieve, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Susan, thank you for having me. Thrilled to be here.
So you had, how long did you campaign? You came from a family, a long time family. I mean, politics isn't new to you at all. One of the reasons I wanted to share you is this beautiful smile, this engaging personality, your heart to really want to talk and communicate with the community. But you come from this. This isn't new to you. And we're talking to a lot of people who may want to get involved in some way, and they don't have the history that you have. So could you tell us a little bit about your growing up in the kind of the political climate?
Sure. Well, I never thought that I would ever be in politics. So I think that that's important to start out because you never know what journey your life is going to go on, even if you're born and raised around something. So I'm a 7th generation Texan and a 4th generation Dallasite. My great-great-grandfather was a state senator. My great-grandfather was the campaign manager to legendary Texas Governor Pappy O'Daniels. My grandmother was the first woman ever elected to the Dallas City Council. That was in 1957. She was the first woman elected in Dallas. And
impressive.
That's really amazing. My great-uncle was a congressman for 16 years. My father has been a part of politics, whether working for Senator Bob Dole or a number of Republican leaders. I've grown up going to these different events with different elected officials and seemingly thought, I am a child, why am I here? I don't want to be here. And
like,
yet,
try, what am I doing?
Right. And then on my 33rd birthday, just about, I was like, I woke up one day and I just thought, you know what? I think I'm going to run for Congress today. And you never know how the Lord just whispers to you and helping you find your path. And I like to say that my journey to running for office was really about tuning into God's frequency and those little whispers. Because at that point in my life, I had no idea I wanted to be in politics, do anything in politics. I just knew that our state is the best state in the country on earth, and that this city is worth fighting for. And I wanted to be something and present someone different that I thought was a better reflection of our community.
When you talk about fighting, what were you fighting for? What did you notice? Where did you see a need that you said, you know, I can fill that?
Well, I feel like Dallas or the DFW Metroplex is an epicenter of business. And my big entree into running for office was that I thought we needed someone that actually understood business. Having spent 12 years in the private sector in sales, being head of corporate strategy, had national head of sales, I thought that Dallas needed someone that understood the financial aspects of how Dallas needs to grow, why people are moving to Dallas, and more importantly, what that growth can do to impact people's lives in such a positive way. Yeah. I felt like that was enormously missing from the current congressman, and I thought that we needed to present young, innovative, dynamic leaders that we're on the precipice of tomorrow while living in today. And I wanted to be able to demonstrate that, but also really lead our community in a positive way, in a business-oriented way, and in a familial way.
So in a familiar way, in a positive way, you know, those are really nice terms, but they can mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
So describe a little bit about the types of things that you'd like to see. How would you like to see your influence in the DFW community?
Well, so my influence in the DFW community, I'd like to see it be a bright, shining light. What do I mean by that? There's so much divisiveness and a lack of civility in our nation right now, and especially in how, not just how we talk about politics, but how we talk to each other. And I really want to show that people, myself included, we need to start talking about what we're for, not just what we're constantly against. Yeah. You know, my dad has always said, you catch more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And yet for a decade, the conservative movement has only talked about what they're against and not really demonstrating positive solutions on how to accomplish solving the problems that people are really facing. So I really want my influence to be something that's hopeful and relatable, but that I'm empowering people with bottom-up solutions, not just me forecasting, this is what I think would be better for your life, but actually saying, you know what, let me stop and listen to what's really affecting you, because you're closer to the problem that's affecting you, and you probably have a better solution than I do, but how can we work together to solve that?
Yeah, you and I are kindred spirits in that. I know when I started out building this network, that was my thought. It's like Susan doesn't have the answers for everything, but I bet this community does.
Right.
So let's create an environment where their voice can be heard and shared in the business community, and we can participate, and that's really the whole point here. So we're kindred spirits on that. I totally dig that, and you're right. We don't have all the answers. It's about time people in those positions really think about that.
It's incredibly arrogant to assume that anyone in a leadership position knows all the answers to what's happening in your life.
Right.
It's incredibly arrogant. And I really try to live with humility and integrity and use those guiding principles to, you know, distribute the message of hope and light, and that we can solve these problems, but we can disagree without being disagreeable.
True, true. We need to make sure that in that beautiful litany of the things that we want to do, our Constitution is protected.
Right.
Because if in the process of doing all those things, we forget those inalienable rights, we have totally thrown away this beautiful experiment called the United States of America. And I think on the business level, one of the things that struck me so much when everything went down, as you hear on the news one night, and then the very next day, the business community had circles on the floor and signs in the door, and we scared the crap out of the community. And turning that back around, now that we understand just how much garbage was associated with the messaging, that was probably very intentional at the time, and we're looking at that a lot more closely. We want to know who's going to support local business and realize that, you know what, where was the science on any of that? On those decisions that were made, we're not idiots. We understand that there wasn't, but this community, largely, they need to know. And I feel like if we support the local business community, stand up for themselves by standing up for the community, by standing up for that Constitution.
Right.
Now you're going to create an environment where our kids actually have something to grow into.
So I completely agree. And during the early part of the pandemic, I just kept thinking, the proper role of government is not to decide winners and losers in business. Yeah. You know, that is not the proper role of government. And we don't want the government to interfere in our lives and choose, you know, these big box retailers. They can stay open, they're essential, their employees are essential, but, you know, 80% of the American workforce is now deemed non-essential. The government cannot, in my opinion, pick and choose winners and losers in business. And that was something that really stuck out to me during the pandemic. And I just thought, who's the advocate for the local folks? Yeah. You know, one thing that I did was really talk to community or small business owners. I highlighted them just on my social media channels, interviewed them, what's their experience, how are they dealing with the ever kind of evolving quicksand of the local regulations versus state versus federal. How is that affecting their lives and their businesses? And I really wanted to spotlight businesses that are trying and, you know, get people to go to those businesses, because that's what we should be doing, is supporting each other and not determining who is worthy of staying open or not.
No, it is, and I think we set that example, and just like you have done in this community, you set the example. You stood up and you said, "I'm a young woman, but I know this political landscape, but I'm going to step in here and participate in it." I think the risk that we have in our community today is that if we don't, we will get run over like a freight train, because there's a very real freight train. We can all feel the weight of that. Yeah. That would love to take away even more of our liberties. And I love how the Constitution provides for this beautiful phrase called nullification.
Right.
And when we started teaching the Constitution here, that's something that we do 4 times a year. We teach the Constitution to local business owners. And we really experimented with how do we disseminate that information, how do we make that attractive, and now we've come to a Liberty Lane series in media that we do, is really where that came around to, because we can reach more people that way. And why not use the media facilities we have here at
and they're fabulous.
OBBM network at Grace Point Studios. They just do a fabulous job. But we've got to be able to help people understand on the very core level what it means to be American. We quit teaching that in our schools. So while we can talk all day long about reading, writing, arithmetic, and how SEL is impacting our children, we can also look at the other side of, well, do we even know what it means to be an American, and what it means to go through this, we the people, understand that we actually have a lot more rights at that local level and at that personal level than and we want to know who our champions are. We want to know who those people are that are saying, you know what, first of all, this isn't about my feeling right or wrong about this. Let's balance this. I know as Christians, you and I both know we have our book, we have our Bible. We will go back. I can rooted and grounded in that for myself. But the Constitution is that other piece, is what weighing everything against what exactly is a right. And like many people, I thought a Constitution gave me rights.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
But, well, so many people think that.
It is now. I'll tell you what, if you, we're going to go talk to a few of our sponsors. We'll be right back and get into more, because I can't wait to hear Genevieve's response and watch some more of that beautiful smile. We'll be right back.
A polished look says a lot about you. In under 3 seconds, that first impression can open and close doors. Genevieve has the brands you love to wear. Style & Company, Pistola, Aiden, Vince Camuto, and more. 165 labels with fit that flatters. Genevieve.com. Genevieve ships from Farmers Branch, Texas. Ask us about local DFW fashion shows that bring Genevieve right to you. Upscale fashion doesn't have to be expensive, and you don't have to dig through racks of clothes that end up damaged and missing buttons from being tried on over and over and over again. Genevieve.com is your answer to fine clothing in casual, career, and formal wear. Make a name for yourself. Do it in style. Genevieve.com. Name brand apparel without the department store prices.
We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. The Epoch Times is independent. We're not controlled by any special interests, and we never will be. The Epoch Times is a non-partisan media. That means we don't stand for any political party. This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would ensnare this country in ignorance, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Business runs on technology, and human beings are creatures of habit. Unfortunately, not all our habits are good. Technology, when it works, is supposed to make our lives easier, creating routines that allow us to protect customer data, track our progress, forecast the future, communicate better, and move much faster. So, you need technology solutions that work when you're not working, or simply not paying attention. Smart technology solutions, making the complicated uncomplicated.
My American dream is to help you stay healthy and energized so you can live your American dream.
Our American dream is equipping future generations of American dreamers.
My American dream is to protect my community so they can live their American dream.
My American dream is to bring you some spice and flavor to your life.
Our American dream is ensuring what's most valuable to you.
Our American dream is creating opportunities for healthcare providers so they can have their American dreams.
My American dream is serving our business community and advocating for all of your American dreams.
And we're back. You're watching Offbeat Business TV. I'm your host, Susan Hamilton, and I'm here with Genevieve Collins. And we're kind of talking about the run she just had in 2020 against Colin Allred. And wow, you just saw a lot of those things that we're watching you. And we want to know, what did you experience? And are you the mama bear? Are you the, are you the person that understands that we need a champion for the Constitution of the United States? And of all the wonderful things and platforms we can stand on, is that one of yours?
Well, thank you for saying that. But my experience, as I reflected, I might have lost the race. However, I did not lose. It was such a joyful experience. And that's saying something despite a global pandemic, a race war, and an energy crisis. Some of my big takeaways from running for office are that, one, I had an opportunity to intrinsically and foundationally know myself. What do I mean by that? Every day I had to defend my position on 40 different issues, or a myriad of the issues of the day, which are always ever changing. And what I noticed is that this is a real opportunity. I noticed, like, probably a couple months into running for office, because I'm having to defend who I am, I got to learn and become unshakable in myself. I got to learn, what are my true foundational principles, and what's the why behind the why? You know, it's that iceberg kind of analogy. What is the 80% of why I believe these things? And really, that's such a gift to be able to become resolute within yourself. And what a gift to do that at 34. So I have nothing but positive things to say about that. And I really feel like, while it's hard, it should be, right? Nothing should be easy about running for office. But to be able to be authentic, because a lot of people, in my experience, are for sale with their opinions, and I need to talk about it to this group in this one way and this group in another way. I just decided I can't be anything that I'm not. I wrote every speech, I wrote every policy position. I can't say someone else's words. I can barely speak my own, you know? And
funny,
so,
yes.
And so, but yeah. It was just, in that regard, it was an amazing gift. I expected it to be hard. I didn't expect that, 20 days prior to the election, I almost died. Something most people don't know. I contracted sepsis from having appendicitis, and I was in the hospital, and seriously, 20-minute septic episode and almost died. But, after I come out of the episode, I told the surgeon, I was like, I gotta go. I have a debate tomorrow. He was like, what is wrong with you? You're not going anywhere. But I think that I say all that because to understand your principles, become resolute in them, know that hard work always pays off, and to know that you're fighting for something bigger than yourself, that you're fighting for the foundation of greatness, that you believe that this country is fundamentally spectacular. It's not just an experiment. It is the North Star. It's the guiding light that every country wants to be able to achieve. That is absolutely worth fighting for. And ensuring that Texas is at the top of that list of all the other 50 states, that we're the ones that are the beacon of light, that we hold the line on what democracy is, that we demonstrate what a pro-business environment looks like, what a pro-energy environment looks like, giving people a limited government and unlimited opportunities. That is worth fighting for, and to be that champion, it doesn't get any better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, you're gonna as you run again, and you actually make those ways. We don't know when, but when you do, you're going to and you hold that office. You're going to be responsible for reading the things that cross your desk. We're a little concerned that the people holding those offices don't, and we're a little concerned that I don't care what party you're a part of. We've got people that are running things right now that don't necessarily have our best interests at heart, because they're busy thinking about their next run or their next meeting or the next campaign contribution that they need for whatever measure that needs. And we see a lot of that going forward actually in education. We're a little concerned about some of the directions those things are going. And we want to know that we've got these voices, because you've got an agreeable tone, you've got that ability to convey, right? And you're not, the word I'm looking for is approachable. So you want to be able to know that we can talk to you. When you hold office, how do you feel about those interactions that you continue to have with the local community that you serve? Because at the end of the day, no matter where you are, you serve the local community if you're doing it right.
Completely. And we've gotten so far away from local politics. National news only talks about national politics. Rarely do they actually talk about state politics. And you're lucky if your paper even covers local politics. And oftentimes those mediums are not always either truthful or balanced.
They're not truthful and they're not balanced. And you know what? That'll be on me. I said it. They're not truthful and they're not balanced.
But the reality is, as a country, we've gotten away. We think that the federal government controls so much of our lives. And the reality is that it doesn't.
Did you hear that?
It's that the local politics have massive more influence, 80% more influence on your daily life than the federal government can ever do. Your liberties are really at stake when it comes to your local politics. And we have completely forgotten that. Many politicians or campaign folks, they always say, all politics are local. It starts at the kitchen table. Well, we know that conceptually, but we don't practice that as a culture anymore.
It's so important, because when you're going to Washington and you're having those discussions, you need to know we're watching, because I think that's what's happened here. I think we got a lot of people participating in these national roles, and they forgot that that we're involved here and that they truly do represent us. And I think that what you're going to see going forward are the local communities realizing we're taking that back. We're showing up, we're paying attention, and we're learning how. That's kind of awesome and scary at the same time, but there's no other way.
Well, Virginia, the governor's race between McAuliffe and Glenn Youngkin, it put an exclamation point that local politics, when it comes to school board meetings, and how parents have rights when it comes to their children, how that local issue catapulted across the entire state, that has now changed the balance of what we can probably expect in the midterms, and having a huge sweeping change in the House of Representatives, no longer being led by Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, we want far less government.
But that's really what we want to see, is that local, it's that slope that says local all the way up to the federal, not the inverse, which is what we have now. DC's putting in a lot of one-size-fits-all solutions, and the folks listening to you, they're business people. They don't appreciate one-size-fits-all solutions. Right. Business people are innovative, dynamic, evolving, and they're reactive in the moment in real time. And the federal government is lethargic. It is not innovative. It's
a hungry beast.
It may be hungry, but it is not productive.
No.
And it has no product.
And it doesn't have money by itself.
Bingo. So you have to think, like, what are we following perverse incentives, right? Are we following?
That's exactly what
it is.
Yes.
And that culturally, how are we really looking at the incentives of not just how do we vote or how do we be involved at the local level, but how are those local champions actually holding our state legislators accountable? How are our local folks holding our federal legislators accountable? These are the incentive changes that we need to see happen. And I think that, to your point, Virginia is the shining example of doing that successfully. And now we need to see that across the entire country. And parents are woke, they are awake. I won't say woken up because I don't like saying woke, but they are awake. And the pandemic, to its credit, surprisingly, gave parents a view into the classroom that they hadn't had.
You know, I think that's very true. There are some things, the takeaways that we can have on that as we learn how to do it better. Because quite frankly, we are going to build it back better. It's not going to be this particular program, but the United States of America is going to build back better because we're going to build back from the local up. If you're enjoying this conversation with Genevieve as much as I am, hang tight. We'll be right back after these messages.
Business runs on technology, and human beings are creatures of habit. Unfortunately, not all our habits are good. Technology, when it works, is supposed to make our lives easier, creating routines that allow us to protect customer data, track our progress, forecast the future, communicate better, and move much faster. So, you need technology solutions that work when you're not working, or simply not paying attention. Smart technology solutions, making the complicated uncomplicated.
My American dream is to help you stay healthy and energized so you can live your American dream.
Our American dream is equipping future generations of American dreamers.
My American dream is to protect my community so they can live their American dream.
My American dream is to bring you some spice and flavor to your life.
Our American dream is ensuring what's most valuable to you.
Our American dream is creating opportunities for healthcare providers so they can have their American dreams.
My American dream is serving our business community and advocating for all of your American dreams.
And we're back. I'm Susan Hamilton, your host of OffBeat Business TV, and I'm here with Genevieve Collins, and we're getting quite an education about education and everything else. This has been great, and one of the things that we had mentioned earlier on was this, it's being time to roar, time to really challenge the challenge culture. We need to realize that we've got a right to do that. In so many ways, the big hand of big tech and big government really tried to squelch that, and I think it did scare people. It's much easier to scare them with a mask on. You demoralize human beings into a space where they're not communicating anymore amongst themselves. So now what do we do? Because if we don't challenge this freight train is not good.
Well, so the challenge culture that I like to say is, let me take a step back. In my company now, I work for Americans for Prosperity, and built into our culture is an ability for every employee to be able to challenge the leader respectfully. Sure. But to be able to, that they have the autonomy and authority to challenge and ask questions.
Very good.
And I love that that's part and ingrained in our culture. And I think that we're seeing that now, not just in my company, but actually in how conservatives are reacting to society, that we're challenging it back, that we're not just, idly sitting by watching CNN, but we're saying, wait a second, this is weird. This isn't right. The science is, we're making the science up in real time,
and this
yet
is Mockingbird. It's just how can everybody, bandwagons, I don't jump on bandwagons.
I don't either, but I think the thing about challenge culture is that while we're I think we revert back to what I mentioned earlier. We revert back to this idea that we're against things. And as we challenge, that means that we're always challenging against something. And I'd like to see culturally how we challenge being for something different. It's a tiny perspective change, but it's far more inclusive. And when we think about local communities expanding the tent on the same values and principles, we can do that better by challenging with different ideas of what we're for. And we can't just keep saying we're against things with no other solutions.
No, that's true. We've got to, one of the first conversations I ever had, I attended a rally in Austin, and that's one of the first things I learned was someone looking at me and saying, Susan, we understand
Right.
this, but we're here working for you, and you guys aren't giving us anything to go on. And that was something I needed to hear at the time. They're right. We've got solutions right here in this business community that we can be bringing to the table if we know how. For instance, we had a show earlier with the North Texas Commission. Well, guess what? There's organizations and commissions, and we can have this attitude, like you're saying, of I'm against this, or we can say, wait a minute, I can participate in that, and I can influence that, and now we can take something that could be dysfunctional, and I'm not saying that is, but there are a lot of things that are, and cause it to be functional and cause it to be autonomous in a way that benefits the community for the constitutional
think
side
about
of that.
Not just that, but you're changing the power structure.
Yeah.
Where instead of just taking whatever someone else says, we can challenge and empower ourselves or our community members to say, well, have you investigated this opportunity or this other solution, because we believe that this is a better solution for the community based on all of the facts, the data, and the science, which we know conservatives, our values, our points of view, our principles, our policies, they work. Free markets work. Not having the government in your health care, it's a much better solution than making small businesses have to pay arms and legs for insurance. Our ideas work, but we're not conveying them in a way that demonstrates how we're for the solution. We're just always putting it against. And that's where I'd like to see our challenge culture utilize stories of other people, not just our own opinions, but utilize stories of people that are in the community, the local business owners that can't afford Obamacare. Their premiums are, $25,000 for a family of 4. The business owners that were forced to shut their businesses down during COVID, when having a business to a business owner is essential to their life. Yep. And the government just said that they're not essential. How are we collecting those stories? You're obviously doing that. And how do we do that in scale that demonstrates these are the buckets of policies, whether it's economic freedom, healthcare, immigration, any of the social causes, pro-life, Second Amendment. How are we demonstrating that those stories are for something so much bigger to protect the Constitution, to protect the American spirit?
They are the Constitution. Those aren't just social causes. Those are protected by the Constitution.
And yet we don't challenge that in a way that the other side recognizes that we're serious. That's my point. Yeah. Is that we're in this fine-tuning moment that I see. I may be the only person that sees it this way, but I feel like based on the culture that we have between President Trump, President Biden, what's going on at the federal level, we have a community that's able to really thread the needle to really tell our story of how Texas leads the way and how our communities know what's best.
You've heard these conversations for so long. You understand some ins and outs talking about threading the needle. You probably know a thing or two about how to get things done just because you've been in that family for so long, and those are no doubt relationships that are far-reaching into so many things, and it's very, very important. What would you say to someone who's listening to this show that says, you know what, there's something inside of me that says I should do that. And I want to challenge you. If you've got a feeling out there like you don't see anybody that represents you, it's probably you.
Right.
And if it is you, what would you say to this person that's, you know what, they probably got a family. They probably have a business. They probably have a lot of other things going on in their life, and they might look at Genevieve and go, wait, I didn't come from a political family.
Right.
I don't necessarily have all those relationships. But what can they know about stepping up and deciding to participate and hold an office?
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Genuinely, the worst that can happen is you lose. So what? Happens to literally thousands, tens of thousands of people every election cycle.
But is that the case today? Today it can be, I'm going to destroy your family. Today it can be, I'm going to say them. There's a mudslinging that can make it really awful. And you've survived this.
Yeah, but the point is, these are just words, and I don't have to ever wear someone else's words as though they're my own.
Love that.
And it's a perspective, right?
Yeah.
People say terrible things about me.
I'm sure they do about me too.
They would say terrible things about me online. And I just thought, how sad for this person.
Yeah.
This has absolutely no bearing on my life, but that they feel like they have to disseminate just terrible language and horrible things that they want to see happen to me. That, I don't have to take that as this is either going to happen,
right.
and I certainly don't have to wear those. I'm cloaked in the armor of the Lord, and I am ready for the arrows. I'd like to know which way they're being pointed, But,
luckily, he goes before you and behind you.
Right.
Isn't that good news?
But I will say,
yeah.
for anyone that's listening that thinks that they are hearing the whisper, do it. I have nothing but positive experiences from this whole thing, the entire journey. I look back at it with joy, because not only was I able to be resolute within myself, I was able to meet people where they're at, not lose myself, and I was able to demonstrate the kind of leader that I want to be and then have turned into. And so what if it's hard? So what if you lose? The journey is about collecting the experiences that allow you to be better at the next step. And
I love that. Live by that code. As a matter of fact, that's the truth.
Right.
So what would you say is the biggest thing you learned from this journey?
Well, I don't know if I'd learned, I think I fine-tuned something that I live by, but just be fearless.
Yeah.
I am a natural risk taker. Now, there's a lot of people that just aren't.
Yeah,
but
I am.
I've never found a rule that I like, or a risk that I didn't feel like, well, maybe we'll try it. That's just how I live.
Yeah.
But having that opportunity to just become fearless in yourself, like, that's such a gift. That's such a gift. And so few people take that moment to say, yes, I can, because I'm qualified, I have a point of view, and what's the worst that can happen? To become fearless in yourself means that you can take on any objective, any problem, come up with any solution, and lead any people. People want to follow people that are fearless and that want to lead and want to do it with a good heart. And why not be that person? It doesn't just have to be me or you. It could be anyone in the audience or anyone that's watching. Why not you?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what
That's a great question. Why not you?
Well, that's ultimately what I decided is, June of 2019, I did all this data analysis on myself, or by myself on the district, and I just thought, at the end of the day, you know what? Why not me? Someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I may not know
big.
beans, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And why not me? And I guess it's that sense of fearlessness was a phenomenal lesson, because it's now charted me into a whole new path. And I'm now staying hyper involved in politics.
And you've got this organization. Tell our viewers how they can get involved with your organization and stay a little more connected to Genevieve Collins.
Sure. Well, Americans for Prosperity I run the state of Texas for 3 organizations: Americans for Prosperity, the Libre Initiative, which is all about Hispanic engagement, and then Concerned Veterans for America, which is all about empowering the veterans' voice, but doing it through policy, not necessarily service. There's a ton of veteran service organizations. We talk about how to make veterans' policies come to fruition.
Excellent.
And so what we really do is have full-time staff. We plant full-time staff in communities to build authentic relationships that say, we're not just going to drop in and come out to galvanize and activate you. We're going to have full-time staff in offices around the entire state of Texas. We currently have 11 offices. And we're going to educate, we're going to empower, and we're going to activate people on the principles of what makes this country great. And without the education, people don't know what they're fighting for, right? If they think that their rights are just given to them from the Constitution, that's a bit of a problem, right?
It is, because a piece of paper and it goes, it's a sneeze away.
Right. But to understand, when it comes to your health care, we've just lived through a global pandemic. Is expanding Medicaid in Texas the actual right solution? I don't believe that's the case. How do we collect the stories of nurses who the Texas Medical Association said that are not medical professionals? How do we empower more nurses and give them more ability to practice, which will increase the access to quality healthcare and reduce the cost?
Yeah.
Right? How do we educate the public on the issues that are most affecting their lives? How do we empower them to then be the torchbearer of their community, saying, you know what, this is not what I want, whatever's being offered and by XYZ legislator, I think either I can do something different or I can work with that legislator to make them better. And then how do we change elections so that we have better policy majorities? What I believe is that supermajorities don't work. You can look at it in 2016 when Republicans had the House, 2020 now with when Democrats have a supermajority, they don't work. We need a balance of parties in our government system, in our legislatures. While I would love to see supermajorities all the time, we don't get as much done. And that's not in the best interest of the American people. So how do we activate people to do what's best? Tell their stories, block walk, phone bank, host tailgates, have wine parties.
Yeah, those are my favorites.
I love wine parties.
Bring people together and tailgates.
Big fan.
Really talk to your neighborhood. You know your community, folks. You're involved in this. And if you're enjoying learning from Genevieve, you're going to find all the links to these associations in the write-up of this video. I am so excited. If you're watching this on Roku, you're also going to find it on Rumble, Gab, Clout Hub, you name it. You're going to find this program, and you'll find the write-up of this information with it. You will also find the audio version in the OBBM network. You can find that on Spotify, Apple, wherever you go. You're going to be able to connect to these organizations and support things that work. And I totally 100% agree with Genevieve that if you are feeling this tug, that I need to be able to do something and participate, friends, if I'll go one further. Of course, if it's not, it may be you. What happens if you don't do that? What happens if you fail to step up into something that you're being called to do? And I think that we are in a great risk if you feel like you should be participating and you're not. So get the encouragement that you need, draw on this video over and over and over again, and share it with your friends and say, hey, what about this? I'm thinking about this. Get that encouragement that you need and then take the first step and go support your local community, because it just might be you. Until next time, you've been watching Offbeat Business TV or listening to the OBBM Network. I'm Susan Hamilton, and I thank you so much for your time today.